Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering from ELD's Time Vault Games in Bellingham, Mass. Here we have Mark the Goblin King facing off against Matt Orfanello on Aluren, sporting his next level Gutters shirt there. Has been mentioned previously on the channel, he actually takes care of my gutters. Great guy, starting his own business. If you're in the area, definitely check him out. And he's got a Gilded Goose joining to block this Goblin Lackey off of Cavern of Souls. So Cavern says, good luck interacting with me, Gilded Goose. I got this. I can hold off a Lackey for a while. Wasteland takes out that Bayou. And, that's just one of those interesting metagame considerations where this may be better in many situations than a Noble Hierarch or a Birds of Paradise. The ability to hold off Lackey from connecting is not nothing. There was no Deathrite Shaman. That was a really brutal time for Goblins. But a blocker nonetheless, even if it doesn't kill the Lackey, can hold him back. And 2 mana, will we have a Munitions Expert? No, just a Mog War Marshal. So War Marshal coming down, adding a counter to the top of the library to remember to pay that upkeep if necessary. Second land, Misty Rainforest now. We see a 2 or 3 mana play. Got some doggos in the background there. Root and Madon. 3 mana for an Oko. And that Elk's a Goblin Lackey. Oh, now this is a very tempting thing. I feel like you've got to pay the 2 mana here to connect for 5 against the Oko. 5 comes across, Oko down. This will slow some of the more broken things that Goblins can do, but it does establish a very solid clock here. Matt is going to need to find some type of way forward, most likely involving the Aluren combo. It's going to be a lot to totally stop the bleeding here. Goblins, bigger than 1/1s, are pretty fearsome. This 3/3 may be an Elk, but it is a Goblin in spirit as it continues the beats. And now coming across, one of these being blocked. And 3 mana for a Goblin Chain Whirler. That is a Goblin Chain Whirler, ladies and gentlemen. Coming in, doing a damage to all sorts. Icefang Coatl feels like the coast is clear. I think doesn't he have like First Strike too? This guy's a bit of a problem. Sling-Gang Lieutenant. Wow, and this game is just spiraling out of control here. Tons of damage coming across. And that should do it. Here we go. Down to just 6. That Mog War Marshal pulls double duty with Sling-Gang Lieutenant. And even though the Goblin Lackey can't be sacrificed, there are plenty of other goblins to do the final 6 points of life loss necessary to move us on to game number 2. It's a very interesting deck that Matt's working on here. I would take a different tactic if I were building it, so I'm really curious to see how this plays out for him. Were I to play Aluren, I would be on a full play set of them, running Recruiter of the Guard or Imperial Recruiter, being able to shotgun the win with a 2-card combo. I think Eternal Witness is an extremely important card in that deck. You can win in response to all sorts of stuff with Eternal Witness. Really, Krosan Grip becomes one of the only cards that you're super worried about, as the split second is a legit issue, but anything else you can potentially respond to their Disenchant or Force of Vigor effect by continuing to just win the game instead. But, I mean, that may be strategies that are held over from the earlier days of the format. But it is fun for me to see these decks play out. Matt won that leather playmat he's using there, using Eureka Tell in spectacular fashion here on the channel. As part of our team events, and I cannot wait to get back to those. That is going to feel absolutely amazing. Have some genuine gratitude when we can get back to, playing shoulder to shoulder with our friends in the card shop. Feels like another lifetime at this point, but we'll get back there. Gilded Goose opening up here for Matt. A little bit of mana acceleration, a little bit of a shield against Goblin Lackey, and a mountain. Going for an Aether Vial. Those new unsanctioned mountains. And, ooh, is that a Plague Engineer? Turn 2 Plague Engineer off of Gilded Goose. Not slowing the roll at all there. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Without seeing Matt's hand, it's tough to weigh in on that play. Now, there's not typically too much in the way of discard coming out of the Goblins sideboard. Historically, there has been at different times. Now we've got a Thoughtseize from Matt. And it looks like this Matron can make short work of this Plague Engineer, so it's really gonna have to go. The next turn, Matron would be able to actually tutor up a Crater Maker who could then easily take out Plague Engineer, and the game could unravel pretty rapidly from there, given the rest of Mark's hand. Even still, he can get a bit of a board presence here. 3 mana for a War Chief, and there's a Vial at 2, which will be able to put in a Goblin Pile Driver. Now another Plague Engineer would likely just... Yep. Gross. I was going to say that's likely ready to move on to the next game. I'm not sure Goblins has a whole lot here. I mean, certainly not in the form of Goblins. He may have some sideboard answers to a pair of Plague Engineers. But there isn't much in the way of Goblins outside of double Goblin Chain Whirler, which, I mean, that's actually a thing. That is a potential thing. Mark has certainly been in worse situations. I suppose he could tell us if he's won from worse situations. Goblins often finds itself in a mess. But it is a scrappy deck that can sometimes find a way back in. Got a Scavenging Ooze, nomming on some goblins from the yard there, gaining some life, getting bigger. And this feeling like we're going to be seeing a game 3. And just like that, Mark agrees, says it's time to see the next one. Oh no. Just doing a little reformatting here during the shuffling. I don't think there's a way to preserve the XY coordinates of stuff in OBS. If there is, let me know in the comments, because this feels ridiculous to be slowly nudging this hourglass across the screen. If it was Photoshop, you'd just hold shift and it would stop it from moving north or south. Oh, at least it's behind me now. I don't think you guys can see that currently. Matt throwing it back. Gilded Goose acceleration so far, as I've viewed this deck, has been important for those early Okos, which does beat a lot of decks, though I'll tell you, it's not as oppressive versus Goblins compared to many other strategies. I mean, you're really relying on the making 3/3s in the matchup for yourself, I should say. You're not really hoping to upgrade their Goblins to be Elks. I mean, the Elks are... I mean, I know this is going to upset some Goblin players, but the Elks are actually better than the Goblins, with a few exceptions. We've got a Pyroblast stopping a Ponder, and that's something that Goblins is going to look to do very often, is either have a quick gotcha against a counterspell early, or use a Pyroblast to slow down a Ponder or a Brainstorm. If you're sitting there holding on to Pyroblasts, kind of waiting to have some type of bomb to hit it with, chances are you're not using your mana well enough. Every turn that you're not using your mana with Goblins is a little bit of a setback. And if your game plan is to intentionally not use your mana for many turns, probably not going to work out as well as you'd like. Aether Vials ticking up. Bloodstained Mire. Finds the Badlands. Two mana for an Icefang Coatl, drawing a card during the end step. And now a Gilded Goose. Oh no, a Ponder, sorry. A Ponder. Making that land drop. And playing a Thoughtseize. Mark has the response. Putting in a Crater Maker. And we see Pashalik Mons, Gempalm Incinerator, and Goblin Matron. Going with the Matron. Gonna leave that Gempalm. That cycles, clears the Icefang Coatl. And Crater Maker able to swing, push through a little damage. Another land drop is made. And Pashalik Mons ready to hop in there off of Aether Vial. And continue with some decent pressure. Oh, is that Muxus? Oh, I guess it's Muxus. I have a hard time differentiating those two. I gotta really take a look at the art. We got a Muckus and a Vial ticking up, so this is a time bomb situation. Matt's going to want to handle this Aether Vial before it gets to 6. A statement that previously would have been ridiculous prior to the printing of this massively powerful goblin. Just everything about him is massive. When I first heard him, I thought he was a 1/1. Like, I just didn't even check the stats. I just assumed. Like, I stopped reading the card after the flip 6. He has a lot of text on there. And he is capable of actually winning the game on his own. But he certainly does bring a lot of goblins with him when he does show up. And now Oko. And this does feel like it might be time to get that Aether Vial out of there. Matt agrees. Elking the Vial. Pyrokinesis. It's a big play. If that resolves, I mean, Matt's going to be able to draw 2 before he decides. Leovold and Ice Fang taken out. The red equivalent of Force of Will. And again, this Elk backfiring for Aluren as Oko is cleared. This time with the Crater Maker and the Elk. And another land is played. Aluren into Baleful Strix. Goblins 1 land away. A Euro. Right down to the wires. Right down to the wire here. We've got a Muckus ready to jump in if there's just one more land drawn for Mark. But Aluren's on the battlefield. A Goblin Matron would be devastating off the top with Aluren in play. You can Matron for Matron for Matron. Grab a Skirk Prospector. Holy cow, that would be horrifying. And I think with Mark thinning the deck there, interesting. I would not have expected that. He would be very happy to draw a land. Sending for 5. Passing the turn. And a Brainstorm, super dangerous card in this situation with that live Aluren on the board. But again, very dicey for Goblins to be able to use the Aluren. That's not generally where you want to be. Typically you want to get Aluren out and just win. You don't want to enable your opponent's creature deck. Get a little crazy. And another Brainstorm. Will Matt find the Aluren win? Or is Mark gonna belly flop this Muckus onto the battlefield? End of turn, Goblin Lackey. Crater Maker targeting the Baleful Strix. Oh, is that a Plague Engineer? Oh, that is graphic. Goblin Lackey down. Cavern Harpy now comes in. Gempalm Incinerator. Just for no value. And this game just completely unraveled there as Goblin Crater Maker was holding down the fort. Didn't realize the responsibility that was on his shoulders here, as it was actually stopping Matt from comboing off. Last card is Pyrokinesis. And I think actually this is just going to combo off in response, so that Baleful Strix is going to be able to be rescued repeatedly. Actually, all of the targets are going to be able to be rescued by this Cavern Harpy. And now each point of life is going to draw a card for Matt. Can he find a Euro here? He may not need it. But wow, that Crater Maker was the only thing holding it together. 3 damage. Trades with the Elk, and now some Gilded Goose show up. And I believe a Scavenging Ooze gaining some life here for Matt. Wow, that instant speed Plague Engineer just devastating. And Euro actually coming back from the graveyard, and now that is going to do it, as Cavern Harpy can pick up that Euro and allow Matt to draw out the rest of his deck and then get the familiar, recently banned familiar, Cauldron Familiar, actually banned from Standard, but it is a legacy playable card, as we see here, as it will allow infinite damage now to Mark with each Cavern Harpy entering the battlefield. Matt gains a life, Mark loses a life, and then he can use that life to refuel the combo. And a devastating finish to a very entertaining match. That is all for this one, but don't worry, there is a lot more. You can check out our older videos, and we're always putting out new videos from ELD's Time Vault Games in Bellingham, Massachusetts. If you want to help the channel, of course, you can like, subscribe, share, tap that notification bell so you can know the next time our new videos come out. Thanks for watching.